I'm Nicola Bell. I'm an associate in the employment team at Fox Williams. Traditionally, a lot of people think about flexible working in terms of flexible working requests, and that sort of flexible model was traditionally focused on hours of work. So whether that's compressed hours, staggered hours, part-time working, but people are now starting to move towards this agile working model, which is very much incorporating things like hot desking, working from home, working remotely, and that's taking advantage of sort of technology that's coming in and being more readily available to companies. And it's more about sort of how, when and where employees carry out work. And the sort of main focus of that is to think about getting the best out of employees in terms of when they work best or how they work best, and allowing them to have some sort of say in how and when they do that. I think the main practical issues when companies are introducing flexible working and agile working is that it's not just a box ticking exercise. So a lot of companies will think about introducing a policy, but they won't necessarily think about the culture of the company. So we always advise people to basically look at their management first and speak to them initially and make sure that they've got management buy-in in terms of them sort of pushing the project forward, but also that they're showing from the top that they're willing to work flexibly and on an agile basis as well. And that means that the project can often be more successful because the more junior employees who it might actually be focused on will then be more willing to sort of partake in it and go along with the project if they feel like they're able to do so. I think the main legal issue to consider is discrimination. So whenever companies receive, whether it's a formal flexible working request, or if someone's asking to work on an agile or flexible basis on a more informal route, the thing to think about is whether they have any protected characteristics. So that's under the Equality Act, things like sex, disability. Those are the things you need to think about, because before you refuse a request, you need to show that you've adequately considered it and that you've taken the sort of appropriate steps to make sure that you've gone through the commercial business reasons as to why, if you do want to refuse it, that you can refuse it, and you've got sort of an adequate paper trail to show all of that consideration and also why you've come to that particular decision. Another issue to think about is health and safety. So I think a lot of companies think that if employees are working from home, they don't have the same health and safety obligations, but actually the health and safety legislation applies equally if someone's working from home or if they're working in the office. So it's really important before introducing any sort of flexible working arrangement or agile working project that you consider how you're going to manage that in terms of people's home working environments. So what you have to do is show that you've taken reasonable steps towards ensuring that they've got a safe working environment. And that can be done by way of risk assessment, which the employees can actually carry out themselves. So you can give them sort of a step-by-step questionnaire as to what their working environment is and what it looks like. And that can help inform you as to whether it's compliant with health and safety legislation. GDPR is another sort of legal issue that you need to think about with flexible working. So GDPR obviously came into force in May of this year, and that imposes sometimes quite onerous obligations on employers in terms of processing and storing personal data. So that applies again equally to employees that are working from home. You need to think about data storage and security in terms of how that works if an employee is working from home or working remotely. So things that you should think about is whether employees who are working in that flexible way need additional training in terms of how they handle personal data. Also, it's important to make sure that your systems, whether that's external Wi-Fi providers or cloud-based systems, are secure enough. And often problems come from if individuals are working in things like cafes or any sort of external environment and logged on to a Wi-Fi there. The question is whether that Wi-Fi is actually secure or not. Also, you should think about a lot of companies have introduced new data protection policies. So whether that covers home workers or agile workers adequately or not is something that you should be considering and asking before rolling out a flexible working policy or arrangement.